Relations.
Maybe. Who knows?
We'll talk about it more. Welcome to Big Facts. Good evening. Late Sixers game tonight. Late start for us. Justin is has a lot of good information for us tonight, and
I'm
I'm gonna
pleased, and I know you're disappointed, so I'll start. How about that? Because
yeah
you're going to be the
yeah.
fucking the
Well,
cloud over this win.
I'll spend the evening countering a little bit
This
because I
this
didn't.
this this was not the greatest win. Let me start that way, right? I mean, you were up 21 points in the fourth quarter, wound up winning by what was it? I think 6 or 7 at the end. It was bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was bad, but there are so many things that are positive to come out of this game. So many things. First of all, as we all knew, just more reiteration, Joel Embiid's the best player in the NBA. It's not even close. He's fucking astounding every time I watch him play basketball. It's just unbelievable. Ben got aggressive, which was good. I think he wound up with 15 points or something like that. That was positive to see. There were still 6 or 7 plays where this motherfucker drove the lane and I'm shoot the ball, go up, and he's just trying to find somebody to pass to. That's frustrating. Ben had a good offensive game. Matisse had a great game. I know Kyrie scored, I think, 37 or 39. Kyrie Irving is a top 3 offensive player in the NBA right now. Right now, today, that's his skill set. Show me a guy that stops him. They don't exist, so I don't want to fucking hear about how, the defense is supposed to be so good, but Kyrie's still 8. He's a top 3 guard in basketball right now. Yes, he still scored 30. I saw, for the first time in a long time, the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers make a real difference to end a basketball game. If Brett Brown were the head coach of this team, those starters never come back out until they're down again. We lose this game by 5 points because Kyrie gets hot and they don't adjust. There is plenty of good to take, and the biggest good, the most important, is that if they end up in a tie, the Sixers own the tiebreaker. They now have their own destiny to control with the first seed in the East.
Well, the Nets didn't care that whether they got the tiebreaker. The backup players cared because they wanted their minutes and they wanted to score their points. But if the Nets cared, you would have seen with the game getting a little closer, Kyrie Irving come back in the game, and Kyrie did not come back in the game because they just simply don't care. The game is, first of all,
I just got the alert for what you called this. You said the Brooklyn Nets JV team. I just saw it.
Yeah. Listen, to say it's I'm not extremely disappointed. I'm a little worried. That's not disappointment in the game, because what happened in this game was anybody that's laboring a knee the way Joel is, and not laboring it but working his way back into shape, as you pointed out. Ben Simmons played a good defensive game and an aggressive offensive game. You're up 21. You pull your starters. It's just what you do. Kyrie was out of the game as well. The matchups weren't even there for them to be in the game for any reason.
And keep in mind, bro, when you pull the starters, Dwight Howard didn't play tonight. Mike Scott was your 5, which is egregious to ever have Mike Scott play the 5. We still haven't had George Hill on the floor yet on that second unit. Shake had a great game, but Shake is also trying to work his way into being a 2 guard once George Hill comes onto the team. There was concern for sure. But what you saw out of Brooklyn, just like with Philadelphia, this is not the team or the rotation you're going to see come the playoff time. The playoffs are going to be entirely different for both of these teams. Pretty much every guy that was out tonight for Brooklyn is basically the entire roster you're going to face throughout the playoffs.
The reason this game worries me is because typically, even if it's just Kyrie in this game and you blow them out, you feel real good going into the playoffs if you have to face this team, right? You two out of 3 in the regular season. One of them, James Harden. 2 of them, James Harden, were playing in, and you feel good about it. Giving up that lead, coming back in, you're cold. You're not able to really put the dagger in until there's a couple minutes left. You don't hit a free throw for 8 minutes. It was reminiscent a little bit of the Brett Brown years with how they just went flat offensively. And I think it's just hard to come back off the bench when you think your night's over. And then the coach is like, oh, shit, like our guys aren't handling business. Hey, guys, we need you to go back. And your mindset's like, I'm done for the night.
But Embiid still came out and put on, bro. That's what
he had a big block at the end.
And this is my thing, too. That even with 21-point lead, Joel Embiid does not exit the game in the fourth quarter in the playoffs. Joel Embiid will play all 12 minutes of the fourth quarter in every single playoff game that he's healthy. So this is what's important to keep in mind. All your concerns are valid. But let's be real. Is Furkan Korkmaz going to hit the floor in the Eastern Conference Finals? Hopefully not, right? Like, hopefully not. Again, trash time when you're up 30, maybe. Right, yeah. You're not going to see it. Is Mike Scott going to play one playoff minute? Hopefully not. There's a lot of things that were a part of this game that will not be there come the postseason. So while I get your concerns, they're regular season concerns. And what I saw out of the guys that matter, I'm more concerned with Seth Curry having 5 points. I'm more concerned with Danny Green being ineffective again. Those are the concerns that I find. But even though those guys combined for 10 points or 12 points together, Danny Green and Seth Curry, you still got your 30-plus out of Joe. Ben had an aggressive game and got 15. Tobias Harris, again, this is another point. Tobias Harris is on another level that I don't think any of us ever really believed he could get to. Tobias Harris is playing like a second option right now. That is what he is. I mean, Tobias Harris is your James Harden right now. Like, he's not the distributor, but as the 25 points a game you're counting on out of James Harden, well, Toby's giving you all that.
He's your crutch when your stars need a rest. He's the absolute crutch of the team. And so if you don't have Tobias Harris, you're not keeping the flow of the offense and the flow of the game when Ben and Embiid are not on the floor. And you need to get them rest while also being able to score and have that type of option to score. Tobias Harris, we talked about him as far as, what he's worth as a max player. Is he a max player? All the questions you want in the world. It's very easy to take him for granted when you watch Joel Embiid put up 40 points in 30 minutes and watch Ben play an aggressive game, and then you're staring at Matisse Thybulle guarding Kyrie Irving, and then all of a sudden in the third quarter, those guys sit down, and Tobias Harris, I think he had like 24 points tonight, something like that. Yep. But it was at times where it just didn't seem like anybody else was able to get to the rim, anybody else was able to score. They were giving him the ball, and they were just like, we're kind of useless right now, bud.
That's what Tobias Harris gives you, right? Like, other than Joel Embiid, Toby is the only 3-level scorer you have. Like, Furkan, I know, shows flashes of driving to the net, but again, if Furkan Korkmaz is a part of your Charles Great Point, Thybulle is a defensive monster. If Furkan Korkmaz is a part of your playoff rotation, you've got a fucking problem. So when it comes to your 7-man rotation, which is what you're going to count on come the playoff times, it'll be 8 or 9 deep, but 8 and 9 are foul trouble or God forbid an injury happens. You have a 7-man rotation for the most part when you've got guys like Ben Simmons that can play 40 minutes, when you have guys like Toby that can play 40 minutes. What you get out of Tobias Harris is something that it's like what Milwaukee has always wanted Chris Middleton to be, right? Chris Middleton was supposed to be the second option behind Giannis. They can give you 25 a night, and he's shown you times where he's worth 30 a night. But he's inconsistent, and that was our beef with Toby in the beginning of the season. Tobias Harris was one of the most inconsistent players in the NBA for the first 2 weeks of the season. Since that time, this guy gives you 23 and 6 every single night. Every night, that's what you can count on. And it's not just trash time against second teamers. He can play with Joe and Ben on the floor. He's a guy that can score from all 3 levels, and it's important to this team.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, it kind of looked like for periods of the game that DeAndre Jordan was doing like a decent job on Embiid. The reality of a lot of the plays where it looked like that, I thought the refs tonight just were awful.
Terrible.
Like they were. There was a play.
Dude, that one that was like Zaza Pachulia a couple of years ago in the playoffs, where fucking I don't even remember what net it was, landed under Joel Embiid's feet, 6 feet away from the fucking rim, right in front of the referee. No call. Like it was bad.
Did you see Shamet in the fourth quarter with like 3 minutes left, literally shove Ben Simmons to the ground?
Yeah, dude, he hip
run
checked
under
him.
The basket.
He hip checked him.
And he actually fully extended his. I don't know if we're talking about the same play. I think I know which one you're talking about. Fully extended his arm, shoved him to the ground, and the rest of I didn't see it. And like it's a 5-point. It seemed a little bit just because they didn't score for the last 8 minutes. They didn't score a field goal for the last 8 minutes. It seemed like because this was a nationally televised game, the refs wanted it to be close at the end.
Oh yeah, they were not happy with the 21-point deficit.
It was a
Yeah.
really bad end to the game, and it was kind of defeating. But at the same time, like, you can't go 8 minutes without making a field goal. You should have been able to put that game away, and I shouldn't have had to bring my starters back in. And by the way, I didn't realize this. This was brought up a lot tonight during the podcast. It's a little worrisome going into the playoffs. Not that worrisome because they're still a great defensive team. They're like third to last in the NBA in transition defense, and there was 4 or 5 plays in the second half tonight where after a make, Brooklyn pushed the ball up the floor and got right to the rim with nobody there when Embiid wasn't in the game. Now, again, you point out that Dwight Howard was also not in the game, but that's something that needs to be fixed. If you're almost dead, you're a great defensive team, but you're almost dead last in transition, it means when you turn the ball over, everybody's not sprinting back, and that can't happen come playoff time. So they need to make some adjustments.
And
there.
that raises the question, right? Like, this is what a lot of people hate about today's NBA, honestly, is how much are we actually seeing right now? Are we seeing, like, we're winding down to the end of the season. There's 17 or 18 games left, whatever it is. Are we seeing 80%? Whereas 6 months ago, we were seeing 50% effort. You know what I'm saying? What do we have right now in the wind up? Like, this game, I feel like you probably got 80, 85% of the guys that were available. Like, that's something that you have to keep in mind. This is when the playoffs come, everything changes. I would tell you to expect, not to be not surprised, to expect this half court offense to be entirely different once the postseason starts. I believe that Doc Rivers has a system he thinks is going to work against the same team across 7 games that takes away the limitations of what Ben Simmons gives you in the half court. Matisse can't shoot from outside this season. Shake is going to be a guy that you're going to need to get hot at some point. Toby's going to have the ball in his hands, and Joe's got to get his 35 to be on. I think this entire offense looks different. And if the offense is different, this is new, right? Their specialty now, their wheelhouse is to slow the game down. When Ben Simmons first came to the Sixers, the first couple of years with Brett Brown, their best asset was speed, move the ball, transition, fast.
Yeah.
Since Doc came in, he's been able to work a half-court offense that works with Ben Simmons. Now, again, Ben's still only averaging, I think, 11 and a half or something fucking terrible. But that half-court offense, come playoff time, I think is going to be entirely different. So we take away a lot from these regular season games, especially 1 versus 2 seed. This means something to those guys. But there's a lot that's going to change come playoff time, bro. And I have a question I thought about. How different's this game if both teams are fully healthy, right? Ben said something before the game. He was asked about the offensive prowess of Brooklyn. And Ben said, well, there's one problem.
Yeah,
there's one basketball, and you have to play defense. And that's kind of what you and I've been talking about with Brooklyn for months now. You have to play defense, and there's one ball and 3 guys. If Kevin Durant, James Harden, LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin were all in for Brooklyn, and you had a full lineup with Dwight Howard being your backup 5, Mike Scott wouldn't touch the floor, the entire game would have been schemed and played differently. With the effort that I saw and what Ben was able to pull off and how good Toby was and what Joe does, I don't think Brooklyn competes in a 7-game series still, bro. They don't have, unless they outrun you by 30 in the first half, they cannot stop you in the second half of the game.
Yeah, my thing with Brooklyn is I'm aware of how it goes for teams that aren't good defensive teams once the playoffs come around. I get that. I also think that it's very rare that these 3 these caliber players come together on one, like 3 guys like that. And forget about Aldridge and Griffin. They're good players right now, and that's all they are. They're not any better than good. They're just good, like solid. They're not going to
18 minutes a game.
They're not going to fuck the game up for you,
right.
Basically. They're vets. So I'm trying to think of another team that we could say, just had great offensive players and closures like that, because we can talk about Mike D'Antoni's Phoenix Suns, but aside from, Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, who Amari Stoudemire's game was great, but he was just more of a big, solid, slamming. Nash is giving me alley-oops, and Nash wasn't really this all-time
Dwight Howard
scorer.
in Orlando.
Nash wasn't an all-time scorer. He was an all-time distributor. So I'm trying to think of a team where like three guys that can also close games out because they can hit a shot from anywhere on the floor. So it's a little bit different for me. I don't want to put Brooklyn right there with every team that's been great on offense and bad on defense, because I see three individuals that whoever's got the hot hand can close out a game for me. And they're all MVP caliber guys. So
no, but that team's a bad defensive team. Like they are. They
got bullied by everybody on the Sixers today.
Yeah, and Matisse Thybulle had 2 blocks. A couple of guys had multiple steals. They don't have the firepower. The '08 Celtics is a good point, but the '08 Celtics you can't go to. Rajon Rondo was an all-time defender. Like Ray Allen, you absolutely have an argument with. He's a terrible defender. Paul Pierce was a plus defender. He wasn't great, but he was plus. Kevin Garnett wasn't a great defender, but he was plus.
He was a great defender.
He was a good defender. He was a good defender.
Okay, but the whole team. I think their team was like they were a top 3 defense. They weren't. We think about those 3 guys, but I'm pretty sure the Celtics that year, the whole year, were a top 3 defense.
Well, when you have Rondo, who was at the time the best defensive guard in basketball, it's not that difficult to get to. It's like Chauncey Billups was back in the day, right? Like when you have that guy that is all his job is to do is defend and not airball threes because it's not your job. That's all you have to do.
And you're not getting.
The only team that you can compare the level of ability to with Brooklyn is the Golden State Warriors. But the problem there is A, the 3 of them together are not as good as Steph, Clay, and Kevin Durant at the time you had those guys. A, and B, Steph is not a good defender by any means, but he's not as much of a liability as his brother Seth Curry is, which we know painfully. Klay Thompson is a top 5 defensive wing in the league when he's healthy, obviously.
Draymond was there.
Draymond Green...
I think they were the second best defense in the league.
Draymond may make the Hall of Fame because he won 3 titles and all he could do was defend. He was the triple single. That's what he did.
We got to stop giving. We got to. I don't know what it is.
I'm not a proponent of that. Don't hear me saying that like I think it should happen.
Stuff that goes around, but with Edelman, and it's like I'm like, what are we doing now? Like,
well, football and the wide receiver positions watered down. You know, let me ask you this question, bro. I heard this question. Anthony Gargano and John Kincaid were fighting about it the other morning. Is Dwight Howard a Hall of Famer?
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, you got an MVP. Absolutely. You got multiple defensive players of the year, right? I know that. Right now, our most fresh Dwight Howard is the Rockets' failed experiment, the first Lakers trip, and then he went out with LeBron to win one. Now he's on the coattails of Embiid. He's 36 years old. He's been in the league a long time. He is just, if you took Orlando Magic years and forgot the rest happened, take his title away. He doesn't need it. He's a fucking Hall of Fame. He's one of the best centers to ever play basketball.
He's gonna finish real high in rebounding, blocks. One of the best defensive players we've just ever seen in the game in general. Has a ring now. He's going to play a factor on a couple teams down the stretch of it, the length of his career. He's absolutely. I think that's a no-brainer. Dwight Howard, like, if you haven't been really tuned into the NBA for the last 20 years, it's very, very easy to have recency bias and forget what he did in Orlando. And we've had conversations where, and we've disagreed on these conversations, actually, Justin, where we've compared Dwight and Embiid. And we did this last year. I said, or you asked me, would I take prime Dwight Howard over prime Embiid? Now, at the time, this question was, I know, but at the time this question was asked,
I
didn't know this year's Embiid. I'd never seen this year's Embiid. So I was like, I would absolutely take Orlando Dwight Howard. And now I see a different Joel Embiid. So the answer is no. But last year, up until that point, I would have said yes. Quick.
Hold up real fast. Tori, you're commenting on Aaron's side, bro. I just got an alert. Go to the Big Facts page so we can communicate with you, and I can fucking let you on fire for being a Boston Celtics fan.
We'll answer all this stuff on the Big Facts platform. And we'll wait for Tori's comments. So I was in my favorite talking shit group the other day. It's called Talk Your Shit Sports. I think you might be in the group, but don't participate much. Maybe you're not in the group anymore. And someone was comparing, and I hate the comparison. I'll tell you why, because we got in this whole argument. And of course, the argument ended up taking us right back to the LeBron and Mike argument. So they started putting up stats, and the stats were comparing Ben Simmons and John Stockton. Their numbers, not their playing style. So their numbers were very close through the parts of it. And then
I love Ben, bro. I cannot get anywhere close to that yet.
I know. And then Ben and J Kidd, right? So the numbers
that
just in
one's
general,
closer. Jason Kidd, you can see happening because John Stockton was good from Jump Street. Jason Kidd took years to develop.
The problem with this comparison, because we have this conversation a lot about eras, right? So when Jason Kidd played and when John Stockton played, if you couldn't shoot a 3-point shot or really just didn't shoot much in general, you weren't a liability to the offensive side of the – nobody ever looked at John Stockton and was like, he's a fucking offensive liability for Utah. No one ever looked at Jason Kidd who's like, fucking offense. They need to get him off the court in the fourth quarter and late in the fourth quarter.
Because the game was different.
So it's a different game, right? So if you stick Ben Simmons in my argument in 1998, he's an MVP caliber player because they don't play outside in. Now they played inside out. So same thing we were watching the Lakers Sixers final. So it's really hard to compare those caliber players. So the guy says, well, can you compare eras or not? Because we always say we can or can't when we talk about Mike and LeBron. I'm like, we're talking about two GOATs now. Like Mike would still be able to play today and he'd still be really fucking good or great. And LeBron would go back and he would dominate everybody over there. So you like those guys can play in any era. But when you compare, you can't compare Jason Kidd in that era of basketball or John Stockton in his era to how it's played today and just put up numbers to tell the story. You have to give the answer is you can compare eras if you give context. And
sure, and the context. So let's talk about those. I love those comparisons. I don't hate them as much as you do. I disagree. John Stockton is, dude, you got to be.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to tell you the honest to God's truth. Of all the players that I've seen, watching John Stockton play basketball, there's one guy I've ever seen play basketball that I've gone, man, he looks a lot like John Stockton. And that is 100% Jason Williams. And I don't want to get into that argument, but that's the only guy I've seen with my eyeballs. What do we have? Well, so Wilt, he read my mind because my example of the end after we talk about these comparisons is Will actually. So you have John Stockton right off, throw off the fucking table. Ben Simmons, if he accomplishes everything he could, he'll be lucky to accomplish John Stockton. John Stockton is an all-time point guard. Him and Magic Johnson are the two best point guards in the history of the sport. Period, point blank, end of story. Jason Kidd is interesting because if you look at the career arc of Jason Kidd, and we know very well because he played for New Jersey, he was low. I mean, fuck, back then you might have been a Jersey fan because you had a team. So
no, never.
so when you look at the career arc of Jason Kidd, Jason Kidd was a guy who was not a great defender, but Jason Kidd could handle the smaller guards back in that type of basketball. Jason Kidd's offensive prowess was distribution. He didn't develop a shot until he was 30 fucking years old. I mean, Jason Kidd couldn't take an 8-foot shot until he was fucking 30 years old.
Right.
Jason Kidd was a wide open layup or he passed the ball. That's all he could do. That's every skill he had was just that. Ben is obviously a little bit better than that, but Ben is also gifted with being 6 foot fucking 11. Jason Kidd was not that big.
Right.
Jason Kidd as a point guard is an intriguing comparison. So my comparison to comparing eras in that question. We talk about LeBron and Michael can be either or, right? We're talking about GOATs.
Yeah.
Is Dwight Howard a top 10 center of all time? His entire career? I think he's got to be in the conversation. Maybe he's a fringe. Maybe he's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But he's in the fringe of getting into the top 10. Those 8 years in Orlando were Shaq-level dominance. There's no taking away from it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to go in like 8-year spurts though, like then we start talking about like the Amari Stoudemire's.
Yeah, but Amari wasn't 8 years. Amari was 4 years, and then he went to the Knicks and he died. And Amari was only
he had a couple more good years. He just had problems with injuries, but he had more of a like.
But beyond injuries, bro, when Melo hit the Knicks and it wasn't Amari being the guy, Amari could not play second fiddle. That's what happened to Amari Stoudemire's career. Injuries were a big part. The other part was he could not coexist with another offensive guy. He worked with Steve Nash because Steve Nash didn't need to put the fucking ball in the net. That's not what he did. Amari Stoudemire was the beginning, the middle, and the end of that offense. So if you look at Dwight Howard, right? Dwight Howard's a physical specimen, 6 foot 10 or 11, whatever he is. Big, strong, healthy dude, right? Dwight Howard probably translates to playing a bunch of different eras. We agree?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wilt Chamberlain, who's much more Dwight Howard, like Shaquille O'Neal, you can't compare to anybody. Shaquille's fucking 320 pounds. Nobody will ever be another Shaquille O'Neal. Maybe Zion. Who the fuck knows? When you look at the other dominant centers, though, the level of dominance that Dwight had in Orlando was very, I mean, dude, this motherfucker averaged 20-plus rebounds a game for a couple of seasons. That's the kind of dominance that Dwight Howard had. Wilt is a close comparison if you're looking at skill set. I don't mean success in his career. Skill set, you're looking at a similar guy. Could Dwight Howard go heads up with Wilt Chamberlain? I don't think so.
I don't know. Probably not.
That's the era comparison in center, right?
Yeah.
But then you throw in a guy like Hakeem Olajuwon. Hakeem was an offensively gifted guy, not a tremendous defender. Dwight Howard in the 80s and 90s, where basketball was physical, Dwight Howard probably fucking destroys Hakeem Olajuwon. Dwight Howard probably ends Hakeem Olajuwon's career on a knee injury because he's just too much. That is why comparing errors has to happen, but it is difficult. It's the Michael LeBron debate. It's how much more would LeBron be capable of if he was allowed to use his physicality, and how much would Michael be hamstrung now that you can't push off to win a fucking game in the playoffs?
Or the other argument is the way these guys train now. Like, how much better if Mike grew up in a different era and actually played in today's game? How much better would his 3-point shot be? How much better would he be? How much stronger would he be from the weightlifting coaches that come in, with these teams now? So maybe Mike actually comes into this era and he grows up at that time and he has a 3-point shot and he has an extra 10 pounds on him. And
I have a difficult question. I have a difficult question I want to ask you that's going to piss a lot of people off.
What's that?
Do you really think, let's just talk about Michael Jordan, the person.
Yeah.
Do you really think that even if he had, because let's be honest, it wasn't the same when Michael played. But there is a lot of things Michael could have done to have been better and to have stayed healthier longer and to not come back to the Washington Wizards fucking 40 pounds overweight. There's a million things Michael could have done that he didn't. Do we think Michael Jordan really would have wanted it then? If he had to compete that hard, if he had to train that much, if he had to be in the gym 6 days a week, I don't think Michael Jordan's a guy that had the dedication, bro.
I do. I
disagree with that entirely.
Given the skill set that he had, I have a hard time believing that Mike would be as good in this era as LeBron would be if he went back in time. That's just my personal opinion.
I agree. I don't know how you watch basketball and disagree.
I think Mike wouldn't be as good as Kobe was. And I'm not a big Kobe fan. That's no disrespect
Kobe was
to
better
Kobe.
in his era.
I just think Kobe's was better for the era he played in and was ahead of his time. Mike, to me, when I watch basketball from that time, and again, the Pistons gave him fits and the Celtics gave him fits before he actually got Scottie and a little squad together. He was scoring a lot, but he couldn't do anything else. Scottie took a huge load off of him. And when I watched those games, I'm like, he was just quicker and faster than everybody, almost in the same way LeBron in his era is just bigger and stronger than everybody. But the skill set is really what separates you. And Mike wasn't a playmaker. So is he just like a taller Kyrie Irving? Like, what is Mike in this era? I don't know. He's probably still a great scorer.
I don't think Mike is Kyrie Irving, bro. You want me to believe that Michael Jordan in this era of basketball with these rules and this landscape averages 30 points a game? No way.
Everybody, I see these arguments all the time that he would average 50. And I'm like, well, Mike's biggest asset was that he had a high IQ, but he was just quicker than everybody else, and he could jump.
He was a better athlete.
He could jump higher than everybody else. So, like,
bro, look at your wings now. Your twos and your threes, your wings. I mean, look at kids like Cam Reddish, who's local product here, plays for Atlanta. That motherfucker's 6'8", bro. We are 5 years away from almost every starter on an NBA team being 6'8" or bigger.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really what's happening now, bro. Yeah. Like, that is the 7'2", dude. We got Bol, who's 7'4".
I have
We've
a
got
hard
fucking
time.
Taco Fall that's 7'7".
I have a hard time believing that there was anybody built in the way that Giannis and Ben Simmons were built and that they wouldn't be able to guard Mike. I have a hard time believing it. I really do. I see those guys, I'm like, they're 6'11" and just as fast and just as quick, and they have longer and you want me to believe that Mike's going to put up, they're like, Mike would put up 40, 50 points a game in this soft air. I'm like, no, the athletes are way bigger and better. I don't think so.
I'm sorry, I got to spend some time on Tori, Aaron. Let's just have you pause for a second. So let's start at the top, Tori. We'll go for in succession. Yes, Dwight Howard in the 90s, when it was physical basketball, not today's rules where it's a finesse offensive game. Physical basketball, the physicality of Dwight Howard was more physical than Hakeem. Yes, number one. Let's go on to the next one. What do we have? Hakeem's not destroying Dwight every day. He went against Shaq in his prime and did what? Shaquille O'Neal owned the NBA for 15 years. Owned it. Nobody competed with him.
He didn't do well against Hakeem when they played.
Oh, give me a fucking break, bro. Give me a break. Who had a more successful career? Shaquille O'Neal. Anyway. This is the biggest fucking false dichotomy bullshit narrative of the Michael Jordan story that bothers me to my fucking core. When Michael Jordan retired the second time and decided to come back and play for Washington, he was crowned the greatest of all time. I have to listen to you motherfuckers every day tell me about how LeBron whines and he flops and he tries to get calls like Michael Jordan didn't do that his whole career anyway. Old, broken down, busted ass Michael Jordan on a team of nobodies, all by himself, of course scored 20 points a game because the league loved him and he was the golden child. I hate I fucking hate this argument.
Yeah, the Washington years were kind of embarrassing. It's like the retiree Wizards thing. It's like, why'd you retire twice? First of all, and what happened before the
if you're so fucking competitive, if you're so I gotta be the best, why'd you quit?
Yeah, and he did it twice. Like, I mean, his skill set as a scorer was great. But we never even saw him become a great 3-point. LeBron's a better 3-point shooter right now than Mike ever was at any point in his career.
Oh my God, who gives a shit he tore his ACL at 40? That's not the point. Your point to me right now is I should be impressed with 20 points a game, old and broken down, being the only guy on a team. Guess what? LeBron scores 20 points every game. He's the same age Michael was when he was with the fucking Wizards. Like, we have to understand this, bro. There is a difference in competitiveness. LeBron James is a massive competitor.
Mike was 35 or 35 as 6'1"?
I think it was 34. No, the sixth championship was 34.
35. I don't think so. I think he was 35. So he went to the Wizards, when he was 37? LeBron is
36 this year, I think.
36. So and he didn't get any time off. So
Tori, I have been saying every fucking episode for 3 weeks to get y'all asses on camera.
I'll send you the
Tell
link
me
right
when.
now.
I'll bring you in right now, bro. Go get your computer. We'll send you a link right now.
We got some more stuff to cover. We can't stay on basketball for a half hour, but we can have him on.
Start talking and we'll see if Tori gets his shit together and comes on. What else do we have to cover?
We can have him on the show for 5 minutes towards the end. So here's my little game that we're gonna play. Just my screenshot game that I love to do. So I'm gonna go through a bunch of screenshots that I took today from sports pages. We'll have a quick discussion on them, and then we'll move on to either baseball or football. So all the talk for the draft, and we'll get into the NFL draft probably in a little bit, has the Patriots being aggressive and staying aggressive and moving up and either trying to move up for Trey Lance or whichever quarterback slides, potentially Justin Fields. I'm actually – the more research I've done – the more I actually think that San Fran is not setting up a smokescreen and that they are going to take Mac Jones.
It's not going to happen.
I really think it's going to happen. But do you buy the Patriots getting so aggressive that they are actually going to move up in this draft?
No.
I don't buy it either.
Now, and again, for a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason being they're not a Super Bowl contender with one of those two quarterbacks. That's the biggest thing. First of all, again, we couldn't disagree more. Justin Fields is not being passed over by the San Francisco 49ers. Until it happens, I won't believe it. Number one. If that happens, Carolina finds the first place to ship Sam Darnold to immediately and finds a fucking way to go get Justin Fields. Immediately. Immediately, it's the first phone call that gets made. I don't think that New England sees themselves as ready yet. There's a couple. They've got Stephon Gilmore's getting older. They've got a couple of things to figure out. They have a future. Is Bill Belichick going to be our guy for the next 20 years? There's a lot of shit that they got to work out in the back end with Kraft and Belichick. I don't think they think they're close enough. That's why I don't think that they're going to get that aggressive.
Well, you made a point that the team has to do everything to build up everything around them and get the quarterback last. And with the moves they've made in the offseason, I don't know if they haven't set themselves up to do that. But given my 20 years of watching them draft, I would more than likely watch them take Kyle Trask in the second round and turn him into a Pro Bowler next year and for the next 10 years than I'd have them moving up.
I think the more likely scenario is they move like 15 to 26 and take Trask at the back end of the first round.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Go ahead, next one.
Jadeveon Clowney signs with the Browns today.
I saw that earlier, bro, and I said, wow.
Now, I think so. Jadeveon Clowney, by all accounts, for anyone that watches NFL football, is either overrated or he's underrated. And I would argue he's probably rated exactly how he should be. And the reason is Jadeveon Clowney never really comes up with a lot of sacks. But if you watch the games that Jadeveon Clowney plays in, he is in the backfield the whole game, just disrupting the offensive line. So if you're looking at numbers, you're going to say that he's overrated. If you're watching the games, I would actually argue he's underrated. And having him on the other side of Myles Garrett is going to be torture for every team in that division. Browns' chances to get to a conference finals and maybe win one next year.
I don't think that they're there yet. Buffalo's too good. Kansas City is still going to be a problem, which before we get off of here, we got to talk about that piece of shit Andy Reid kid. They're better. There's no doubt. Would I be surprised if it happened? No. Would I expect it? Not quite yet. Baker's due a reality check a little bit. They've got this fucking nonsense with Odell they've got to figure out still.
Yeah, they do.
There's some glaring concerns. There's a lot of the Cleveland Brown concerns. Those fires have been put out, thankfully. Stefanski's done a great job.
Yeah.
I just think that we're a year early on the hopes of getting to an AFC title game.
I thought we were a year early last year. I'm curious. This whole year, in my opinion, is Baker's going to be feeling a lot of pressure this year.
Oh yeah. Baker's going to make big money this year.
He needs to take another step. He took a good one last year, but he needs to show the next level of it and show why he was the first pick, because he is due a contract. And if he regresses, they're going to be but he's brought the franchise back. You got to give him a little credit. For all the disrespect Russell Westbrook gets, he's about to average a triple-double for his fourth year. Talk about Russell Westbrook a little bit, because I know you're not a big fan, but it's kind of ridiculous. Because we can go back and forth about, does he win games? He does everything that you would want a player on your team to do, and it just doesn't come out and wins. I don't know how to explain it. I watch him and I think it should, but I also watched the Nets go on a run without Kyrie on the floor tonight, and I thought he was their best player up until he went out of the game and they started playing defense. So I don't know.
So when it's all said and done, Russell Westbrook may be the best player to never win a title. Now, that is exclusive company to be put in. There's some really great players that never quite got there, right? I mean, Charles Barkley, Philly people, we know that.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Karl Malone. I hear that fucking name and I want to fucking punch things. Fuck Karl Malone. Anyway, Russell Westbrook as a if you boil it down to the player singularly, Russell Westbrook's one of the greatest players in the history of basketball. Russell Westbrook is a five-tool player in the NBA, unlike anything we've really ever seen. And I'm going to say something that might upset some people. Russell Westbrook is what you hope Ben Simmons to be. Just so everybody understands what this experiment is. The Ben Simmons experiment is a 6'10" Russell Westbrook. It's a guy that can give you 14 to 18 a night. That's all we're expecting, Ben. I don't need you to score 25. I've got Tobias Harris for that, and I'll take 40 out of Joe. Don't get too upset. 14 to 18 a night, 10 boards, 11 assists. Every night, that's what I should be able to expect. If Russell Westbrook can do it at 6'3", you should fucking be able to do it.
And that's the thing that hurts when you say that, because you're like, man, if he just played as aggressive, like Westbrook shoots 35% or 40% and thinks that every shot's going in anyway.
Oh yeah, he just keeps going, bro.
If Ben thought every shot was going in, he would be a top 5 player in the league.
If Ben played 10 years ago where efficiency wasn't so important, Ben would be a different player right now.
Yeah. So
But props to Russell Westbrook. That is fucking incredible to have 4 seasons averaging a triple-double.
It's incredible. The Hawks have come into 4th place in the East. They're 16-5 under Nate McMillan. They are now sitting 4 games back of the Bucks for third. Now there's 18, 20 games left. That's probably the spot they'll end up in. But before the season, we talked about the Hawks a little bit. They started off poorly. We thought they were a fringe playoff team, and now they have a better record and are probably going to finish ahead of the Celtics, the Heat, and the Pacers.
Bro, they had a huge trade deadline.
Who did they get at the deadline?
You got Danilo Gallinari. You got Lou Williams. They traded Rondo for. They had
and they got Bogdanovich before the season, right?
But yeah, I think it was Bogdanovich or Gallinari before the season. They got one of the two at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
You got a veteran influx to a really young team. Mm-hmm. Now, again, are the Atlanta Hawks ready to compete for a conference? No.
They'll be fun to watch.
Trae Young is probably the most frustrating young superstar. Him and Ja Morant, as impressive as they are, make my fucking nuts itch to watch half the time because they're too aggressive and they think that they're fucking everybody wants to be Steph Curry now when you're a 6-foot guard.
Yeah.
They're a good team. They probably are right now with the moves that they've made. I'd call them a middle of the road Eastern Conference team, a 4, 5, 6 seed. They're going to be fun. I don't think that they're a hard matchup for anybody, though.
See, the best thing that happened to them this year would be to be this good and to find this coach, because next year there is going to be a free agent that wants to go play with Trae Young in that team, and they're going to be better, and they're going to compete for the East probably within 3 years, I would think.
Zach LaVine?
Bradley Beal? One of the guys from the Sixers. Westbrook's back in Washington by himself, just chugging away over there.
Bro, I mean, the Hawks are set up to be great, but I mean, here's the only problem. When's the last time they were relevant? The last time the Atlanta Hawks were relevant was when Kyle Korver was scoring 30 points a game.
Who was their high flyer? They had Al Horford. They had Josh. Who was the dunker? He was a 6'8", I forget his name. They had a good team. They had the best record in the East a decade ago or so.
And what happened?
And they got smoked in the first or second round by LeBron. For the next couple years, so it didn't matter. Let's move on to football. Quick comments. Can we skip over Edelman? I don't want to talk. It's great. Playoff.
Let's just acknowledge it out loud. Julian Edelman was a very good wide receiver. He's not a Hall of Famer. There's a difference between very good and greatness. The Hall of Fame needs to be reserved for greatness. He wasn't great. He had a couple of great moments, but a few great moments do not make a great career.
So let's go back into the draft, because I want to skip over baseball. I don't want to do this. This is the reason I stopped watching the Phils for a couple of years, bud.
Listen, man, the problem that's happening right now is what the fuck happened to Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola started this season incredibly, and it looks like he forgot how to pitch. Now, again, this can't be a management problem. It's not Joe Girardi. There's no way. But that's the ace of your staff. And dysfunction starts at the fucking top, bro. If the ace of your staff can't figure out how to get through the 4th inning, 2 or 3 starts in a row, you've got major fucking problems. But yes, we can skip over the Phillies. Let's move on.
Okay. So over the last couple days, I wanted to kind of narrow in and watch more tape of the guys that I was already really high on and compare them to some of the guys that other people are very high on. Now, the quarterback conversation, it starts with Trevor Lawrence. You've argued you think Justin Fields is the best quarterback prospect in this draft.
I don't think it's close.
You don't think it's particularly close. I've been on Zach Wilson for a while. But
I know you loved Mitchell Trubisky when he came out a couple years ago.
Listen, I didn't even know Mitchell Trubisky when he came out a couple years ago. So, situation. Oh yeah, this is another one too that we got to talk about, because who gave the interview? The Trey Burton. Trey Burton. I don't know. I sent this to you. Did you see this interview with Trey Burton?
I did.
We already know this, right? But it's nice that an ex-player can air it out so freely, and then we can all take it and run with it and say, we knew this the whole time. That's a bad look for the organization. And the worst part about it is the owner continues to allow it to happen. Now, the level of accountability when you win Super Bowl doing that stuff is like you feel like you're the man, you've been in control, but it almost feels like Just, it almost feels like everybody trusted each other and loved each other a lot that year, and that's why they got through the injuries and were able to kind of progress to the Super Bowl. And then Howie kind of took it upon himself to be like, I made all these moves. I did all this. And then for the next 3 years, if it was bad and everybody still liked each other, it just got worse over the next 3 years. So it seems like he's just grasping for more and more control, and the players noticed it after they left.
And it's a Jeff Lurie problem. I mean, it's a Howie Roseman problem. He is the problem, but the last sieve on the fucking gold train is Jeff Lurie. It's the guy at the top. He's the last line of defense. And if you, I understand, bro. We've been in a lot of different parts of the business world. You're a business owner. I've been running fucking businesses for millionaires for years. I understand that money talks and bullshit walks. None of the shit matters as long as you are in the black at the end and you made money, right? There is enough money. Orlando Scandrick's.
Fuck that guy.
Orlando Scandrick's a fucking piece
He
of
did
shit.
it in a rat way, not in an interview way.
Orlando Scandrick did it because he knew his career was over and he really wanted to be relevant still. So I understand that when it comes to when the business owner looks at his asset, all he gives a shit about is profit loss. His P&L report is all that matters. So as long as the team made more money than it spent, Jeff Lurie doesn't care, and I get that. I also understand that's why Howie Roseman is the general manager, because his job is pinching pennies and finding creative ways around things. I get that. But when your product is so front-facing to the consumer, right? Your product is interrogated every fucking layer from the top to the bottom in the public eye. You can't be as slimy as a fucking used car store, right? Like we aren't fucking on here every fucking two times a week talking about the fucking scam the car place up the street's pulling or what it meant when they said this one thing. When you have a product this apparent to your customer, the customer's the fan reads this. We talk about this mock drafts, right? It's all fucking clicks. All they're trying to do is get more information in front of the customer. You gotta fucking know this was coming. It's like Robert Kraft and the shit he got into. You couldn't have not known this was gonna come out at some point. And the fact that you've done nothing to avoid it. You know what this did to me, hearing all this, and this is kind of the culmination of the Eagles' dysfunction story, this interview. The fact that it was Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz that were ousted and Howie Roseman still has a job, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Jeff Lurie does not care about anything other than how much money did Howie make me this week. That's it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon. So that being said, let's get into what's going to put some butts in the seat, maybe? I don't know. Do we take the best player? Do we take the best player in the draft, or do we put butts in the seat? So rewatching tape, let's go through quarterbacks real quick. Trevor Lawrence is not the best quarterback in this draft.
Fact.
But he has the potential to be. I think he has just the highest ceiling as everybody else, given his size, his arm strength. When I went back and watched tape on Trevor Lawrence, and I know you saw this throughout some of the bowl games, he was just a little inconsistent for how much talent was around him.
Yep.
And so he would miss certain out routes by a little bit. His timing would be off a little bit with his receivers sometimes.
He underachieved. It's very simple.
Yeah.
He underachieved.
And it's hard to say that for someone who ended up winning a national championship as young as he did. But I also watched him get outplayed a couple times. And Clemson
by the best quarterback in the draft, Justin Fields.
Who you believe is the best quarterback. So Justin Fields, and I'm sure you agree with those points on Lawrence. I think he has
100%.
a very high. Yeah, I think he has a very high ceiling still. I think he's going to still be the first pick. If I had the first pick, I'd still take Zach Wilson. We'll get to him in a second.
Jesus Christ.
Justin Fields, the reason Justin Fields is sliding is because Justin Fields has – I hate to make this comparison because of how much you love him. His lows are like Donovan McNabb lows, meaning he has an incredibly high ceiling if everything is right and everything goes right. But sometimes when he tries to go off script, and he tried to
I'm
make
sorry.
this.
Wait a second. I'm so sorry. Wait a second. I know that your argument is about to end with Zach Wilson is the best quarterback in this draft, right?
He is. Yeah, he is.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yes. So Justin Fields has like the throw it at your feet syndrome, the like I'll throw a bad ball syndrome a little bit, and that's what worries coaches. I don't think there's every offensive coach in the league looks at Justin Fields and thinks they can make Justin Fields one of the best in the league, and I think his ceiling is extremely high, but his floor is also very low. Man, you just haven't watched the tape. I don't think.
I've watched the tape. Listen to me. If you take away his pro day, do you still believe what you do?
Forget his pro day.
So you're taking away his pro day and just what he did for BYU against not near the same competition that the other guys are talking about.
It's not
what he did on the field.
It wasn't about listen, we can compare competition for different conferences. When it comes to NFL quarterbacks, if we line them up, the best ones to the worst, it's never mattered on actually who's going to be the best quarterback once they hit the league. Fucking Wyoming, Cal, it doesn't fucking matter. So let's throw. Okay, so when you go through tape, does this guy make the easy throws when they're available every single time?
No,
when the
nobody does.
No, he does though, and that's my point. He makes the throws every time. He hits the out routes every time. When the pocket collapses on him, he still gets the ball off and makes good decisions. He can throw from every arm angle, and when he's off script, he's better than anybody in this draft. So for me to think that he is not the best quarterback prospect in this draft, and I say prospect because what's going to happen, is he's going to go to the Jets. He's going to have no offensive line. He's going to have no running back. He's going to have
Why does that matter if he's such a fucking good quarterback? If he's that good, if he's that transcendent, if he's the best quarterback in this class, why would it matter that he went to a bad franchise? He should be able to turn that franchise around.
But does that always work like that?
Baker fucking Mayfield did it.
Baker Mayfield was just headstrong enough to take the losing seasons and get
Listen
through
to me. I need you to understand this. If you're going to try to tell me, if you're going to convince me that Justin Fields has a high ceiling, but his floor is a bad Donovan McNabb, you have to concede that Zach Wilson may have a high ceiling, but his floor is Mitchell fucking Trubisky.
It's not as low
as college,
as
he's the same player. He's the same player.
He's not. It's not close. It's not close. So
he played for BYU, bro. He had no competition. How do you know? Let me ask you this question. We do acknowledge that there's Wyoming and there's Cal and there's all these other fucking schools where you can point out to a handful of guys come from. Those schools still normally play some type of big competition. Who has BYU played that has NFL caliber talent? What is Zach Wilson going to do when he goes to play the Cleveland Browns? When he goes to play,
hold on. They played Boise State, who was ranked I like in the 15 to 20, so, and they crushed them. They played Texas State. I'm looking at their schedule. Hold on. They played Houston. Like they whooped Boise State's ass. They played Coastal Carolina, who was ranked 18th. They played UCF, who everybody was arguing last year should have gotten into the college playoff or the bowl game. So it's not like you don't.
What is Zach Wilson going to do when he plays the Cleveland Browns and has Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett running down the throat? What's he going to do?
We're going to see more Zach Wilson highlights next year than you're going to see for any other quarterback in this draft.
You are out of your fucking mind. You're going to see Justin Fields tape all year.
He might not start if he goes to San Fran.
Because Justin Fields is going to take the job. Justin Fields is going to take the job in San Francisco and win 12 games with the second best defense in the league.
There's too many deficiencies.
Oh my fucking God. You said in our fucking odds show that Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence would win 10 games and potentially win the division for the best value of the fucking division.
I said the best value. That was a rant I went on to kind of make people laugh. But as far as value, I do think Jacksonville is the best value in that division. Yeah.
Not if you know they're not going to win. That's a bad decision. No, it's
but
not
you
good
put
value.
A small amount of money on high value unless you want to put $200 on something that's going to win you 80. Like I'm not a fan of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to throw out Charles here. Mac Jones has no chance at being a top 3 quarterback in this draft. None. Mac Mac Jones has no ceiling. That's the problem with Mac Jones. Mac Jones is what Mac Jones will be for his career today. He is as developed as he's going to get. He's not going to improve. He may look the best in the first couple of weeks if he goes to a team and starts.
Well,
he's more ready.
He might look the best the first year if he goes to San Francisco and actually gets to play a little bit. But overall, again, I don't know who's going to take Justin Fields. I'm really curious to find out. I don't think it's going to be Atlanta. He's going to Atlanta, a lot of mocks. I don't think Atlanta's ready to just throw Matt Ryan out and say, like, let's
Atlanta has the ability to take Penei Sewell at 4, not have to do anything.
Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, but Atlanta does not need the offensive weapon. They need offensive line help. If you're gonna move forward with a fucking 36-year-old quarterback, you need the help on the O-line. So you have to take Penei Sewell because he felt and he shouldn't have. You're gonna take Penei Sewell at 4 and win 9 games, maybe 10. Atlanta's not a bad football team, dude.
Yeah. So looking on some wide receiver tape, I think we're all kind of in agreement with that stuff. We don't have to go over wide receivers. I think we kind of know that the only concern you have, again, is with Devontae Smith's size. You think he's going to get injured in the NFL?
I think if he doesn't go to the right situation, Philadelphia is not the right fit for him. New York is not the right fit for him. If he were able to go to a team like Green Bay where you have Devontae Adams on the other side, if he went to a place where he could be Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison had such a great career because Reggie Wayne was on the other side. But they obviously both fed off each other.
Not at the beginning.
Marvin Harrison wasn't as good as he was during the Reggie Wayne years before Reggie Wayne. He just wasn't because he was the only guy on the fucking field. Like that serves a purpose, especially with an undersized guy. If you have a 2 deep safety covering you every single time down the field, when you're a 5'9", 5'10", 170-pound dude, you're going to get fucked up one day. When Reggie Wayne came to that team, it opened up the middle for Marvin Harrison much more than it was prior.
Yeah, so the other thing I'm kind of hoping is that our boy Landon Dickerson somehow, I think he's going to be at the end of the first round now to a team that just wants to like beef up the offensive line and get he's going to be a Pro Bowl center from Alabama. If he slides to the Eagles in the second round, I wouldn't mind them gearing up for next year, taking Jason Kelsey's replacement.
Well, you have to.
I'm tired of playing.
If he's there in the second round,
yeah.
No, if he's there in the second round, you can't not take him.
Yeah,
it's like Jeremy Chin last year. I understand Jalen Hurts is now our starting quarterback, and make of that what you will. But last year in the second round, the right pick was Jeremy Chin.
Yeah, 100%.
So you've got it. Unless they do something fucking stupid, and Darisaw or Slater fall to 12, and they take an offensive lineman.
And here's my other point. If Darisaw is there. There's the Eagles' best. I think you disagreed with this, but maybe you look at this and maybe you'll agree now. I thought at the end of the year, the strong point for the Eagles, given the depth, even though Kelsey's probably retiring after this year, is probably their offensive line. So I would rather address other things. I think Mailata is going to be a good left tackle, but it's still kind of a little bit unknown given how just the season worked out last year. Darisaw is by far the best pass blocking tackle / offensive lineman in this draft, and it's not close. I think he is going to be a surprise pick early, and I wouldn't mind the Eagles taking a long, hard look at either trading out of that pick for someone that wants him. I know you don't need a tackle. I understand.
I don't agree with this. Hold on, before you go there, I don't agree with this. You have no fucking idea what Andre Dillard is. You have no clue. Andre Dillard could be a bust, number one. Number two, Lane Johnson has done so many steroids in his career that motherfucker might not even have real ligaments anymore. There might be little rubber bands in his fucking legs. Yeah. You do need help. It does not need to be in the first round. I am going to strongly disagree if Darisaul's there at 12. You do not take an offensive lineman. You're not close enough. There's no way that you can take an O-lineman. If you were going after an O-lineman, you stayed at 6 and made the safe pick. It just doesn't make sense to take an offensive lineman. It just doesn't make fucking sense. I cannot co-sign on that. There's right move. There's one singular right move if you pick at 12. And it is either in the best world, Patrick Surtain, because Dallas needs offensive line help, or J.C. Horn. There's no other player you can take where you drafted down to and not have fucked this up. So I want to make that very clear. I don't give a shit if Justin Fields is on the board at this point. I know I said it last week. You take Justin Fields. I'm still going to say that reasonably, rationally, like I would, but the Eagles cannot do that. They cannot do that this season.
I wouldn't be mad at a Devontae Smith pick. I still think he's going to be a number one. But I would prefer to see them.
It doesn't improve your team. You needed
given the fact that the wide receivers couldn't get off the DBs last year. I think it does improve your team because that's his best trait.
No, but he's always open. But we have to talk about the fact that he got to play across from Jalen Waddle. That means something.
Well, yeah, but not in the last. Jalen Waddle was injured the last 2 games. He wasn't even a factor. He wasn't even a factor. He was running all over every. He was running all over every team he played.
He was running all over college.
He won the Heisman.
He was running all over college corners. College corners he was running over, which we know.
Was he supposed to run over pro ones?
Which we know 80% can't make it at the next level.
He played college last year?
80% of college corners don't make it at the next level. We know that to be a fact.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. Like, if you're going to take a wide receiver, you have to take Jalen Waddle.
We can't evaluate wide receivers based off the DBs they play. I would agree. If you look at his skill set, his traits, he's just as good as anybody in this draft, except for Jamar Chase. He's an outlier.
Your poor man's Jamar Chase is Jalen Waddle. If you're going to take a receiver, but
they don't have the same skill set.
If that's the case, if you are targeting Jalen Waddle, you have to trade back a second time, because if you take a fucking wide receiver at 12, they will probably burn down the NovaCare Center. That will happen.
I would love Devontae Smith at 12 still, but we'll disagree on that.
Oh my God, no, Patrick Surtain. Look, everybody commenting, motherfucker. You're wrong, and I'm right. You need a corner. You have no corners on this team.
I'm saying I wouldn't be upset if they did that. I wouldn't be upset. I'd agree that Surtain's.
You know why I would be? Because if it ended up going the fucking Devontae Smith route, it's probably because Patrick Surtain's on the board, and that's gonna happen. That is how fucking stupid this team is.
Yeah, it's not because Dallas took him. All right, so Sunday we're gonna be back, and we're actually gonna have our boys from Catching 3 on. They are a betting company, and they have been on a tear. 9-3 in their last 12 NBA games. Missed one of them by like half a point. Had a pretty good round of golf at the mat. I mean, they've been incredible. They have 4 guys on there, and one of them takes care of each sport. So each one of them concentrate on a specific sport. They're going to be on with us on Sunday. We're Big Facts on all streaming platforms.
Tori, you're going to be on with us next Wednesday. I will watch tape on Terrace Marshall Jr. I've seen you say this on Facebook. I've seen you say this on Facebook a ton. I've seen some. I haven't done enough research. You'll be on next Wednesday. Book your fucking time. 9 o'clock in the evening. We'll have you on like we did our boy Rich last week. And you will come in and defend your points. We'll talk about how you're dumb for being a Celtics fan and that Ben Simmons is better than you want to give him credit for. But I do want to look at who you think we should target in the draft.
Marshall's a good guy to look at. So we'll be back then. Any closing thoughts besides yelling at Tori?
The Sixers won a big game. They should win the East now. There's no reason why they don't. If they lose the East, it is a terrible, terrible, terrible collapse to end the season. Joel Embiid is the best basketball player on the face of planet Earth. The Phillies need so much help.
You know, Joel Embiid was, let me just point this out. If anybody watched the game, favoring his knee from
and wrecking everybody. To
the fourth, and nobody could stop him.
I'm going to go this far. Are you ready for this shit? This is my last thought. This is my closing thought. You can end the broadcast as soon as I say it if you like. My last thought of the night. Joel Embiid has the most unguardable shot in the history of basketball. I'm convinced now.
Stop.
Show me who, bro. Show me who.
Kareem.
Come on, Skip.
The skyhook.
Come on, Skip. Put him against 7-2 defenders. Let's see what happens.
We're done. We'll see you guys Sunday. Big Facts, all streaming platforms.
All right, bro.
This will be up on this episode will be on Spotify tomorrow. Everything's live from here on. See you guys.
All right, bro.